I think it all starts with two sets of questions. One, you know, what are you against? And then second, what do you stand for, right? When you look at these two questions, you will probably have specific answer to yourself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Thanks so much for tuning in and for being here. It's another week, a new guest, and an interesting discussion. I sat down with Ari K, who has over 10 years of branding and design experience. Ari's a certified brand strategist, and she specifically works with women-led firms to help these women carve out their brands, build brand equity, and to transform their business visions. Ari's also the host of a podcast that honors female innovative disruptors. So that was the gist of our conversation. We started with what is brand equity, because everybody wants it, and got into those principles and philosophies that guide us. We also talked about who or what is a disruptive innovator. I could go on and on about Ari, but I think it's time she shares her journey and her advice with you. Hi, Ari. Welcome. Welcome to Women Worldwide.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too, because maybe we could start off just sharing about how you decided to help women-led companies and really to help them with their brand equity and to transform their business vision.
Yes. Oh, this is, a typical question I sometimes actually get from other people. They would ask me, why women specifically? Why work with mainly women? And sometimes it was, for me, I, for the longest time, didn't know why. I just feel it in my gut. I enjoy working with women. Is there
Right.
something wrong with that? Do I need a reason, right? But when you really dig deeper into, your own reasoning, right? Your own why, you'll be amazed what you can uncover. And that exactly one of the thing I ended up doing. I think this probably was a few years ago, maybe in the past year. And I was trying to understand, why do I gravitate so much towards women? And I finally realized, after getting the help from a friend who helped me figure out my own personal brand philosophy. And apparently it's a thing, right? It's not just for Gandhi, but also it can be for you. So what we ended up discovering is that growing up in Bali, Indonesia, as the firstborn, very modest family, my parents never end up going to higher education. So their high aspiration of me going to higher education and get careers and everything was a lot, right? It was a lot to carry on my shoulder, but I did not gain enough resources and support growing up beyond just seeing my mom as a role model. So it was such a small world, in my opinion, growing up in Bali, until when I grew up in a setting as a freelancer, after deciding like, okay, I'm just going to become a freelance designer and figure out what I want to do for my own career. I realized that there's not enough support here in Indonesia. And I wanted to find where that support is, and that is here in Chicago. So the opportunity presented itself. I, moved from Bali to Chicago, got married with my husband, and he would then immediately after we got married says, Ari, do you want to, build a business with me together? And I was like, sure. What worse can happen, right? There's a lot more things.
How bad can that be?
Exactly. But throughout all of that, I found myself trying to find resources to help support me in my new journey, right? Building a business together with my husband, and just trying to figure out what is it like to be a woman founder, to be a woman entrepreneur. So here in Chicagoland area, even though I feel at first it was really scary to just meet other people, I did not know anyone. But the warm welcome that I got from many of the women entrepreneurs here in Chicago and our area are just tremendously amazing. They were willing to, welcoming me in, take me in under their wings, mentoring me, opening doors for me, creating connections. It was mind blowing in a way that, oh my God, I wish we have something like this in Bali, in my home country, right? So I feel like I was overwhelmed with so much support. And from there, it just rolled into, getting the opportunity to work with other businesses who also with women leaders, with women founders, women entrepreneurs, business owners. And it feels right in a way. And I finally realized, okay, I finally be able to put everything together because I've been surrounded by women, right, who help me make things happen for me. And I want to do the same thing for them. So that is my reasoning to actually mainly to work with women.
I love your story. I mean, you didn't experience something, so you set out to help others so that they have what you didn't have in terms
Yeah.
of resources. I also want to say to everybody out there, Chicago sounds like a great place if you're a woman entrepreneur.
It really
Amazing.
is.
Now, did
Yeah.
this journey take years? I mean, I know we're all on a journey and we're still
Mhm.
growing, and you're still probably finding resources as you help others. But would you say that this was something that happened quickly, or it really took time for you to find your personal philosophy?
The personal philosophy, I only found it recently. Now, I've been in business for 11 years.
Okay. Thank you for being
And
transparent.
yeah, and to be honest, for those who really think that, yeah, you can have overnight success, like there are probably people out there who can do that. But
Hey.
for the majority of us, it it doesn't happen that way, right? It takes courage, it
Mhm.
takes perseverance for us to really just like keep on charging to get towards our dreams, right? Sometimes things happen, sometimes life happens. We just went through a lot of big things around COVID,
Right.
pandemic and everything. That was huge. A lot of people got set back and a lot of businesses had to, pivot their business. And it's never an easy journey. I found that even through, our current growth right now, we are still looking for more resources, right? How is it, what it is that we need to do in order to grow more, to scale more. I mean, there's always going to be new learning. So it's never an easy journey, but I think it's always a rewarding one. If you choose to be in this path, in this road, there's a special place in your heart right now that really tells you, yes, I'm doing it because either I love it, right? You feel it in your gut and you know that this is the right thing for you.
Right. And whether it's overnight, 1 year, 5 years, 11 years, there's something about knowing I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be,
Yeah.
because that's when you experience the most growth and transformation. Now, I want to pivot a little bit because you help these women with brand equity. And brand equity takes time. Wall Street cares about brand equity. Can you maybe define brand equity and share a little bit about how you help to build it with some of your clients?
Yeah. Brand equity is such a fancy word for a
Isn't
lot of us,
it?
right? It's a fancy word. But the simple term for brand equity is brand values, right? It's really to say that how do others, mainly your target audience or people in your network, or maybe even, your own employees and board members, maybe, how do they perceive the value of your brand, of your company in their eyes? Is it a good one? Is it a positive one? Is it a negative one? Right? What are some of these different values that come up when they think about you and your brand? So if you think of, let's say, Apple, right? You have a certain perception of the brand. It's innovative, right? It's pricey because
Right.
it lasts longer, right? So there's so many different values that attach to it, but it doesn't get built just within a year. It built over time. As you start being out there in the world, whether through, conferences, maybe you're speaking at one, or maybe you're actually going to networking events, or maybe you actually, give a portion of your business to charity. a lot of these different things can get accumulated into your brand equity. But where do you start? A lot of people would ask me, okay, that sounds like a lot, but where do I start? Honestly, it starts from you, right? You're the one who's going to carry a lot of these brand, a lot of these different visuals out there, whether it's through the, social media channels, through your website, or even for you to be presenting the brand in front of your audience publicly, right? So start with you. What kind of values do you hold and stay true to you that also align to your brand? Perhaps you really are a big proponent for, trying to break poverty cycle. Perhaps that's really your thing, and your company really strives to help that. So in all of your messaging and any, opportunities that you can have, you would include that as part of your brand story, right? You would mention it here and there and why it is really important for you, what impact you hope to really create in the community, and then how your offer, maybe it's a product or services, can also benefit your target audience related towards this big picture you're creating. So we're not for everybody, right? We're definitely not. And if anyone's still thinking it's like, yeah, I'm actually targeting everybody, it's like, no, please don't do that, because I did that in the past and that was horrible.
Right. Well, you can't be with everybody because if you've laid out your personal philosophy and your brand equity, which is all about value, then you would be attracting companies and women who are interested in the same kinds of values.
Yes.
Would you say that's so?
Yes. And wholeheartedly agree to that one, simply because we're now looking at, branding or brand in general as part of our identity, right? When you purchase something, you'll ask yourself, what would it say about me if I follow this brand, or if I purchase this brand, or if I support this brand? So a lot of things that we are now doing in supporting any other brand, because there's a ton of brands out there.
Oh, yes.
Even not all of them for us.
Right down to social media. So if you're out there and you have brand equity and people expect certain things from you, I would think not only just what you're purchasing, but who you're aligning to, your partner organizations, your charities, and anything that you might even share and propagate on social media. People are starting to look to say, oh, this one is connected to that brand. And that's when that might cause issues with your customers or other stakeholders in the market. So this is a really interesting discussion. Can you also share, how do you stay true to your principles? So if somebody else is building their brand principles, what steps do you take? Is there a checklist, or what do you do?
Yeah, there's not really a checklist, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of checklists when it comes to building your brand authentically, right? Because I think it all starts with two sets of questions. One, what are you against? And then second, what do you stand for? Right? When you look at these two questions, it will probably have specific answer to yourself. Perhaps, your childhood influenced that decision, or perhaps some of the memories growing up, things around our lives. It builds up into, exactly. It builds up our character too, right? It's also going to build up our brand character and value. So start from there, and also really looking at, what is it that we're trying to do in the world, right? Who are we trying to connect to? Coming back to the items we talked about earlier about not targeting everybody, but targeting specific type of people who aligned with not just our vision, not just our mission, but our values as well. These are the people who will stay longer with us, right? Who will be your brand champion, who will stay loyal to you. So whenever you come up with, new either solution, whether it's product or services, they'll be the one who gets super excited about your brand and advocating for you. And you want these people, right? This is the main reason why we build businesses, to gain customers and build that connection with them.
What do you say to the female business owner who says, Ari, I want to be a innovator, a disruptive innovator?
Yeah.
Can anybody be a disruptive innovator and then have that
Yeah.
kind of brand equity in the market?
Oh,
What are your
yeah.
thoughts on that?
Ooh, definitely. That's a juicy one.
Yeah, that is juicy. I'm asking some tough questions.
Yes, this really this really align with all things related to branding in general, right? A lot of people probably still think like, oh, branding is all about my colors, my logo, my typography. No, 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 no. We're not talking about that part of the branding. That's only like a small portion of your brand. But the bigger picture here that you need to really look at is that who are you as a brand? Like, what are you delivering? Who are your target audience that we talked about? And most of all, if you really want to be innovative and trying to disrupt your own market or your own industry, think about your positioning. Like, are you the only person or the only company doing specific thing or maybe specific approach? What is that one thing that sets you apart? Right. And it's the hardest
Hard.
one.
Yeah,
It's
your
really hard.
unique selling proposition,
Yes.
value
Yes.
proposition. That's really, it's
Oh my
tough.
goodness, yes. But when you get that nailed down though, you'll be amazed how it would then be such an amazing tool to use because immediately people would then understand like, oh, that's the only brand that does X, or that's the only brand where you can do this, right? So really try to find what is this one thing that only you can deliver, that only your brand can provide, right? Do your market research, do your competitive analysis. It's a lot of ways to
Mm,
figure this out, but I think you will find those information if you do your due diligence, but also start to dig deeper into your own story. A lot of us has a very unique story, and sometimes we forget about that. We feel like I'm no different than anybody else. That's not true, right?
that's
All
not
of us has
true.
a very unique story. If you look deep enough, you'll find that one thing.
Yeah, I think there's a story in everybody. And speaking of stories, maybe you can share a learning moment. Is there a moment, a story, some anecdote where you learned something that you've taken along with you because it was an aha moment, or maybe it was, uh-oh.
Yes. A long time ago, I'm also one of those people that says like, "Oh yeah, I'll be targeting everybody, right? I want to help everybody." And then my mentor says like, "Ari, let's not do that. I tried that in the past. Let's not do
Thank
that."
goodness for your mentor, right?
Oh yes,
What a
and
smart mentor.
it's really is, it's one of those things that you feel like it's such a noble thing
Mm,
to consider, but it's actually bad for your business, right? It's
right.
really bad simply because sure, you want to help everybody and that's fantastic, but not everybody can afford your service or your product. Not everybody can have the alignment that you truly want. And you're not going to be able to actually convert how many millions of people do we have into this world, right? They're not all going to be your advocate for your brand.
That's right. Well, you make some really good points. What inspires you every day to get up and do what you do? You said you've had your company for 11 years. What keeps you going?
Yeah. I started off the company, to be honest with you, simply because I wanted the flexibility, right? Growing up, I saw my parents, working rather hard. And I look at them and I promise to myself, like, when I grow up someday, I want to make sure that I'll be able to have some sort of like flexibility
Oh,
while I do.
I lost your
Oh,
sound for 1 second, but that's okay. You said that when you were growing up, your parents worked really hard and
okay.
you wanted the flexibility. So now you
Yes.
can continue with that.
I wanted the flexibility because I want to be able to do, things that I love,
Mm,
but also, have the flexibility where I can watch my kids grow, right? When they're sick, I can attend them. I don't have to feel guilty or having a hard time trying to be where they need me to be. So, with that in mind, I was like, okay, this is going to be fun. I'm going to be able to work from home, all these amazing flexibility. But
Fun is a key word, Ari.
yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
happy you said fun because you have to have fun.
I
Every
know.
moment has to be, hell yeah. I mean, there's some that aren't clearly, but you want enough of them to keep it
Yes.
going.
Mm-hmm. And from there, I'm also going to be very transparent, right? Our first few years of building the business together was not pretty. It was a hot mess, in fact.
Yeah.
I had to, work for a full-time job with Sears Company. And that took us maybe more than 4 years to finally figure out, okay, what do we need for the business to keep growing, bit by bit. And I was really in the back end was trying to help as much as I can on top of like doing the Sears job. And then I was pregnant as well. And then
Oh
doing
my,
my company part time. That was a lot. Then
that
when I had my
is.
son, I was like, okay, how am I going to do all of this now? And I knew it in the back of my mind. You got to pick, Ari.
Yes.
So I pick, leaving Sears, leaving all that safety net behind and just like charge in because I know it's like I want to be where I feel excited about, right? And honestly, I'm sorry, Sears, but it wasn't that exciting for me to be there. And after I had my son, so what keeps me going every day, to be honest with you, is, having to maintain this flexibility, right? Because this is where I feel the place that I truly feel, thrive the most, that support me the most, that support my creativity, my curiosity, and excitement.
That's so good. Creativity, curiosity, excitement. I hope everybody listening is realizing, stepping back and saying, are those things important? And what are you
Yeah.
doing? And if you need help, well, you might need a mentor, but you might also need a little help from Ari too. So, well, maybe just quickly, if you could share any resources that help you to stay in the know for your clients.
In the know from my clients,
Yeah, around brand equity,
yeah.
digital transformation.
hmm There are a couple of things that I would definitely share. There are a few books that I would recommend. One is called The Story Brand from Donald Miller. The second book would be Brand Gap from Marty Neumeyer.
Okay.
Those two books are amazing if you really want to have, a better understanding what to do with your brand, where to start, right? And then leveraging your own story, combining it with your mission for the business and craft a very powerful brand message for your business. The other thing too, I would say, LinkedIn has been really great for me just to kind of see, what's current trend is happening, some case studies, things like that. So LinkedIn is a great place if you want to follow specific people in the brand space or branding space in general, or, top marketing companies, things like that.
Yeah, no, these are really good resources. I also want to throw out that you have a podcast, and
Yeah.
I think it's called Halo Femtech
Yep.
Podcast. Is that correct?
Yes,
So
that's
when did you
correct.
start that? And maybe you could just share a tiny bit to give everybody a reason to go and subscribe to your
Of
podcast.
course. Yes. Hello Femtech started 2021, I believe. So, yeah, early last year, I co-hosted with another agency owner as well in femtech. So, if those of you who are not familiar with femtech, it is a term for female health and wellness technology.
Oh,
It's
okay.
sort of still a newer space in the technology industry. It's specifically, lean towards those for women, right? The main reason, again, me being in the same space as supporting other women in their journey creating innovative products, innovative solution towards our own health and wellness. So after COVID, I just realized, all these crazy things about health, you definitely need to prioritize your health, right? Mentally, physically,
Mhm.
wellness as, 360 degrees. And with everything that, femtech has to offer, it is such a diverse market. It's such an exciting one. I'm sure if you dive into it, you'll also be amazed of what's available in the market these days for us, for women to thrive in our own life. So that podcast specifically, Hello Femtech, we interview women founders in femtech, investors, experts in the industry as well, just to kind of really understand what are some of our challenges around female health and wellness. What are some of the solutions that's out there? What needs to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So I
So you're
hope so.
really getting the disruptors.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
I love it. I
I
love
hope
it.
some of you will listen to that one and find it useful.
Yes, well, it'll certainly be in the show notes. And I can't even believe we're going to wrap it up with just a little bit of parting advice. You have given advice this whole discussion, but what do you want to tell the Women Worldwide Network? Last thoughts about building brand equity and maybe even being more disruptive innovators.
Yeah, listen to your heart, right? I feel like sometimes it's easy for us to just ignore, like, oh, yeah, I feel it in my gut, but I ignore it anyway. Don't.
So
Because when you feel it, you know that this is the right thing to do. Every single time you feel it, ask yourself, why should you say no to it? What's the reason? What is there to lose? What's the risk? So if you can follow your heart and then just like feel this is the right thing to do, go for it.
I love it. Follow your heart. That is great advice. Okay, Ari, last question. Where can people find you, learn more about you, your company, so that they can get in touch and your podcast too?
Yes. For myself, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So you can find me Ari Krzyzek or Ari K, right? At LinkedIn, or also on our website at chykalophia.com. The short link would be cklph.com for you. And for the Hell of Tech, it's on the majority podcast, platforms out there. So thinking Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well, and Google Play.
Terrific. Ari, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and advice. It was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And you know what I always say? Keep the feedback coming and the conversations going. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I hang out there a lot. And on Twitter, I'm at D. Breckenridge. Okay, friends, until our next episode, stay focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.